Hello everybody, it's Trenton Talks here, and yes, I know it has been a very long time. So what I want to do today is kind of just go over the Electoral College map for the upcoming 2020 US presidential election. So for full transparency, what I'm going to be using is I'm going to be using the FiveThirtyEight polling averages for the individual states to give us a sort of electoral college map. Now, the categories that we're going to be using is safe, likely, lean, and tilt. And we'll be categorizing states based on the margin that a candidate is up within a particular state. So if a candidate is on average more than 15% higher than the other candidate in a state, then that state is going to be safe for that party. And I'll put all of the categories in the description below. So let's start out by giving Trump all of his safe states. Alabama, Arkansas, Idaho, Kentucky, Louisiana, Mississippi, Nebraska's 3rd District, North Dakota, Oklahoma, South Dakota, Tennessee, Utah, West Virginia, and Wyoming. And that gives Donald Trump about 80 basically guaranteed electoral college seats. It is very unlikely that any of these states on election day are going to flip for Joe Biden. These polling numbers are outside of the typical margin of error of around 3 to 5%. Now, the safe states for Joe Biden: California, Colorado, Connecticut, Biden's home state of Delaware, the District of Columbia, Hawaii, Illinois, Maine at large, Maine's 1st District, Maryland, Massachusetts, New Hampshire, New Jersey, New Mexico, New York, Oregon, Rhode Island, Vermont, Virginia, which is typically a swing state, so it's kind of interesting to see them in the safe category this time around, Washington, and that's all the safe states. So you can see from safe states alone, Joe Biden is at 216. So you can see that Joe Biden absolutely has the advantage going into this. And you can also see that we're missing a lot of interesting states on this list that you might expect to be safe states for, well, mostly Donald Trump. You know, Alaska isn't a safe state. Texas isn't a safe state. Now, obviously, with the current map, if Donald Trump were to win every single state on here that is currently not categorized, he would obviously win the election. But will he win every state that's left on this map? Well, no. Or at least not likely. Let's categorize all of the likely Republican states to give us a little bit of better picture of how much closer Donald Trump can get to the 270 mark. This includes the state we were just talking about, Alaska, Mike Pence's home state of Indiana, which is interesting that even in the vice president's home state, it's not a safe state. Kansas is just barely in the likely category. Missouri, another state we talked about. Montana, Nebraska at large, South Carolina, and that appears to be all the likely Republican states. We're also still missing the case of Texas. Texas is not a likely Republican state. To make things interesting, considering that it's currently still Joe Biden 216 to Donald Trump 124, we will go ahead and categorize Donald Trump's lean states. Now, Nebraska's 1st District has almost no polling data available, which is unfortunate. The only poll from FiveThirtyEight that's available was conducted in July of 2020, and it's only from a B/C graded pollster, so it's tough to say, honestly, but it's Nebraska. The poll had Trump up by +2, so this one is not exactly what I would call a confident prediction. But, using context, we can say that Nebraska's 1st district is probably leaning Donald Trump, but really, in reality, we don't actually know. Ohio, finally Texas, and, that's all of Trump's lean states. It's actually just 2 states and a district. So you can see, interestingly enough, Texas is only in the lean Republican category. What is usually considered the Republican California is only leaning Donald Trump. And of course, Texas has been closing for years. I believe the 2016 election, Donald Trump only won it by about 9%. But the interesting thing you gotta look at, if you look at 538's average polling chart, you can see that Donald Trump currently, he's kind of pulled ahead a little bit since the last close where they were actually even. And at one point, a gap of only plus 0.5%. So that would have been even tilt margins there. Donald Trump currently, as of October 28th, is up 1.9% over Joe Biden in the state. But at a time, Biden was up by a tilt margin of a couple of less than 1%. It was very short. Donald Trump is usually up in the state, but look even at the largest margins, Donald Trump is only up by, at most by the looks of it, maybe close to 4% over Joe Biden. That is a very, very slim margin for what is typically a Republican state. If we look at some of the more recent polls, that can kind of tell an interesting story. We're not really going to pay too much attention to these 2 polls because they're from a D- pollster. But from October 26th with decently rated pollsters, you can see Donald Trump is up on 2 of them by decent margins. But in one of them, Biden is up by a percentage point. 2 polls from the University of Texas, Biden is up by 3 and 2% respectively. From Morning Consult, Biden's up by 1%. So even though the state is technically lean Republican, and I would not be shocked in any way, shape, or form if Donald Trump carries the state of Texas in less than a week from today, it's also a real possibility, if we account for the margin of error, that Joe Biden could be leading in the state of Texas in reality amongst every single person who's going to go out in the state of Texas and vote. He could win the election. That's the thing. When you're working with margins as small as lean, you run into the possibility that, your polls could not accurately predict the state in some cases. Again, context tells us that the more likely scenario is that the polls in Texas are, even though they're close, they're probably going to be correct in the sense that Donald Trump is going to win. But again, Texas is definitely going to be a state to watch on Tuesday because it's close. It is very, very close. But even with all those lean states, or I'm saying all those as if they were a big list, with those few lean states, Donald Trump is still only at 181 electoral college votes. He still needs 89 more to win the election. There's 141 up still for grabs, though we haven't even categorized Joe Biden's likely. There's a reason I haven't categorized them because, well, spoiler alert, the results don't look very good for Donald Trump. So let's keep giving Donald Trump the benefit of the doubt and categorize his tilt states. These are states that have currently, as of today, have an average polling margin of less than 1%. These are states where the polling margin is so close that the margin of error almost certainly is coming into effect, and we can't really say, even with a reasonable degree of confidence, that the most likely scenario is that the person who's leading is going to win. And, well, this is awkward. There actually aren't any Republican tilt states. This is it for Donald Trump. Let's give Joe Biden his likely states. These are states, again, that Donald Trump probably doesn't have much of a chance to win unless there's some extreme last-minute change. And this time I'm going to kind of go east to west. Pennsylvania just barely squeaks in. into the lean category at 5.1% as of October 28th. This is very, very big because Donald Trump probably needs Pennsylvania to win the election. I mean, it's 20 electoral college votes. That's big. And it's one of the states that really swung the election in his favor in 2016. Michigan, yet another state Donald Trump carried in 2016. That was big, instrumental even, into giving him the electoral college victory. Same story in Wisconsin. Minnesota, not so much. Hillary Clinton took the state in 2016, but you can see, even at that point, well, there's 272. Joe Biden wins the election. At this point, Donald Trump could carry every single other state on this map, including Florida, which is traditionally one of the biggest swing states in U.S. presidential elections, and Donald Trump could win it and still lose the election. And we've only categorized states at this point that Joe Biden is almost certainly going to win, and he already wins the election. And we're not even done, I don't think. Nope, Nevada is a likely, and Arizona is not a likely. So that's the likely states for Joe Biden. 278 to 181. At this point, it doesn't matter. Joe Biden wins the election. All the other states, Joe Biden is currently leading by less than 5% in the polls. So certainly the margin of error comes into play in those states where, yeah, Donald Trump could certainly win those states. It's a reasonable assumption that it's possible, but again, it wouldn't matter. In fact, I actually forgot to categorize Nebraska's 2nd district because it is also a likely for Joe Biden. He's currently polling at 6.2% in that district. So 279 to 181. All right, well, how about the state of Arizona? The Republicans are not entirely popular in the state, especially after the whole John McCain thing. So Arizona is currently leaning Democrat. It's currently leading for Joe Biden at 3.5%. Again, within the margin of error, Donald Trump could certainly pull it out and win the state of Arizona. But, I mean, again, it would not matter. Iowa typically votes with the winner of the Electoral College. They're leaning towards Joe Biden at 1.5%. North Carolina is leaning towards Joe Biden at 2.1%. Maine's 2nd district is leaning towards Joe Biden at 2.7%. And here comes the fun part, because Democrats have been talking about this for a long, long time. But Georgia, which this is a little bit more interesting because polling data out of Georgia is historically unreliable. And as well, if you actually take a look at the chart over since March, you can see that it's kind of changed hands a lot of times between who's leading Donald Trump or Joe Biden. In reality, Georgia is probably a true toss-up based on this. But as of today, Joe Biden is leading Donald Trump by 1.4%, which officially puts it in the lean Democrat category. Georgia, the state of Georgia. This has been a target for the Democratic Party for a long, long time. And it's a sizable amount of electoral college votes in the South. Now, again, I wouldn't be surprised if Donald Trump carries the state of Georgia because it's certainly within the margin of error. It's changed hands multiple times. It's really a toss-up state. But again, if we're going by today's categorizations, it is lean Joe Biden. The state of Florida as well, actually, funny enough, has the exact same margin of 1.4% as of October 28th, which also puts it in lean Joe Biden. It's not even tilt. There is not a single tilt on this map. As of October 28th, everything is either lean or greater. And Florida, the state that has decided, or rather I should say that has voted for the winner of the Electoral College for the last however many elections, is currently leaning Joe Biden. And this one is a little bit more solid, quote unquote, because Joe Biden has been leading in the state consistently since March. I mean, it got really close. It looks like even as of March 22nd. The margin was, Trump was even up by a 0.1%. And then as we get into the true polling times of the summer before the election, you can see Joe Biden has had a lead ever since. It's kind of narrowed up a bit. I mean, at one point, it was definitely, like in July, for example, you can see that the margin would have been likely Joe Biden, which is insane to think for the state of Florida that it's outside of the lean margin. But right now, it is currently in the lean margin, is narrowed up. So that state could also go to Donald Trump. But as of today, if the polls hold, 357 to 181, Joe Biden wins the election. Okay. Well, we just talked about how Georgia and Florida are technically toss-ups, Georgia especially. So let's say Georgia goes to Donald Trump. Florida goes to Donald Trump by slim margins. I mean, we've already talked about this, but, let's give Arizona. Something happens in Iowa, North Carolina, Maine. Hell, we even give Maine's first district and Maine at large. It doesn't matter. It won't matter. Even in this dream scenario where we give Donald Trump a lot more than really the polls say he should get, he still doesn't win the election. Now, it's certainly a lot closer. It's very, very close, 276 to 162. So in this scenario, it's definitely interesting. It's definitely interesting. If you're looking for states to watch on election night or election week, depending on how this election goes, Georgia and Florida, Texas. Those are the three states that are probably going to be the most interesting to watch. Georgia and Florida because, well, it's really kind of unclear who's going to win. Florida, I would say, is probably going to Joe Biden. I know it's technically a lean margin, but I'm just going to put it as a tilt just because it's Florida. Georgia, I'm not going to categorize. North Carolina, it's probably going to go to Joe Biden. Georgia's really the only true toss-up on here. I mean, at this point, with this information, with safe states and likely states alone, Joe Biden wins the election. So it's less of a question on who's going to win the election and more just like what states are going to flip. So a lot of people are saying that this election could decide the direction of America for the decades to come. But in my opinion, this election could decide the direction of the Republican Party for decades to come. But only if the states of Georgia and or Texas flip. I think less so if Georgia flips, but Texas doesn't. The impact is going to be a lot less. But if Texas flips, there is almost certainly no way that the GOP doesn't change itself in some way to try to appeal more broadly to the more moderate voters. Because if Texas flips, that kind of just goes to show how Donald Trump's policies don't fit with anybody but his own extreme base. Anyways, thank you everybody for watching. The election, as of today, as of recording, is 6 days away. It's still unclear whether it's actually going to be an election night or an election week or election month, but hey, the election is going to be fun no matter what. It all starts in 6 days, so I'm super excited. Even though I don't live in the United States, I live in Canada, it's still fun to follow along with U.S. politics. Thank you everybody for watching. Hit that subscribe button if you haven't already. I might just start posting on this channel regularly again. Hit the like button if you enjoyed this video. Hit the dislike button if you're a Trump supporter who is kind of upset with these results. I'm sorry. This is the unbiased polling data. This is how it is. I also want to make it very clear this is not a review on either candidate. This is not an endorsement of either candidate. This is just polling data. This is how the voters are currently saying that they're gonna vote. If Donald Trump was truly leading the polls, I would categorize it as such, but he's not. Anyways, until next time, stay classy, everybody.